Hey, my name is Demetrius, and welcome to the Apartment Woodworker. Today I'm going to show you how I made this awesome cutting board out of a single 2x4. The first step of the process was finding a nice, straight 2x4 with as few knots as possible. So the importance of having a 2x4 with as few knots as possible is it'll determine how much of the 2x4 you can actually use in the cutting board. So here I'm cutting off all the knots that I can see with my miter saw, and that's going to show me how much I actually have to make. And that's the yield for the cutting board. I ripped down the rounded edges of the 2x4 so that I can joint the pieces together. Once that was done, I ripped them down to 1.5 inch wide strips. And there we go. That's the actual yield for the cutting board. That's what it's going to be glued up out of. So here I'm trying to just line them up to see, which joints are going to be the cleanest and try to keep all the knots on the same face. That way if I needed to, sand it down or plane it down, I would get all the knots at once. I just created a little zigzag with my square and a pencil so that I knew the alignment in case the boards got all kind of pushed out and moved. And now it's time to glue them up. So for the glue up, I've used Type Bond 3. It's waterproof, it's designed specifically for cutting boards and bowls and such. I used my wall here to kind of butt them up against to get them as flat as possible. And then I put my clamps on. Now my glue up was less than perfect, as you can see. I had a bit of twist in it. So I opted to use my electric hand planer to try and get it down as flat as possible before actually putting it through my planer. And there we go. It's pretty flat. So now I'm going to put it through my lunchbox planer. I then squared up one edge with my circular saw on a square. Nothing special, just quick and easy. I unfortunately lost the footage to this. I guess I just forgot to hit record. But I used a stop block on my miter saw there for the end grain strips, and I just cut them and flipped them over because my miter saw only has about 8 inches of crosscut capacity, and I believe this board was about 12 inches wide. So I would just hit it down on the line there, flip it over, butt it up against the stop block again, and then come down on it. And using my miter saw wasn't exactly perfect. I ended up with a little bit of a lip on that, which will sand flat afterwards. Those are all the strips. One of them fell and cracked, so I just decided to just glue it back together. And then you can see the little bit of unevenness from the miter saw, but we'll get to that later. So now here, this is the second and final glue up. As you can see, it's really not flat at all. It's almost like a staircase in the way that they got glued up. So I'm just taking my pencil here and just running it over the entirety of the board, and this is what's gonna help me get it flat. So the strips, because they were so out of alignment, I used 60 grit mostly, which I rarely use, but it helped with the pencil, making sure to get it all off, and I did that for about 20 minutes until I got it really flat, and then I worked my way up to 220 grit. Once I got it up to 220, I put some alcohol on it to raise the grain, and then I sanded it again. Next was to straighten one edge. So I have my jointing jig that I used. I just set it up, I ripped one side, and then I used that straight edge against my fence to rip the other side. And then to get the last two sides flat, I just used my crosscut sled. I then just smoothed out the corners of the cutting board with a 220 sanding block. And now I'm adding the little finger groove. I did a plunge cut on my router and I made my stop marks. Unfortunately, I got some burning. I don't know if it was maybe the cut was too deep. The router pits I was using, the router I was using, I think it's a combination of all three things, but I think it's fine for my use. And then I just added a little 3/16 round over on the entire board for a nice finished look. I just sanded off the burrs from the finger groove, just made them nice and smooth. Then that's it. We add the butcher's block. I put 3 coats. This is just the stuff that you can get at Home Depot. It turned out wonderful. The natural color really came through on the wood and it was incredibly smooth. It just really made the cutting board pop. I'm super happy with the way this project came out. It was a great little quarantine project for myself, and anyone who has the tools and some time can do this in probably less than a day. Before everyone hops on me in the comment section, I know this is made out of pine, which is a soft wood. I wouldn't recommend making this for somebody, unless it's a family friend or somebody close, because it's not gonna have that long-term durability that a hardwood would. But I think for my uses, this is gonna last me plenty. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.